No, we're gonna be as rude as possible right there. Awesome. So you just wanna move down the list?
Yeah, yep.
Awesome, okay. So that leaves us starting with salary increases. Do you wanna list your demands? Cause on here it says something different, but you guys are trying to formulate your own responses.
Okay, hold on one second. Okay, so our first proposal, focuses on stabilizing staffing and maintaining competitive compensation over the next 2 years. So we are proposing a 15% increase for registered nurses, a 4% wage increase upon ratification, a 3% wage increase on the first pay period of year 2, and continuation of that existing step progression annually. And so we feel these values reflect regional market trends and competitive wage expectations.
So given the research from my team here, we found that, the amount increase depends on the facility, but a 3 to 5% raise is standard over the span of 3 years. So I kind of am curious on how you landed on the 15% increase.
Based on our data review, the regional healthcare labor market is experiencing increased turnover and wage escalation. Most nearby hospitals implemented 3 to 5% adjustments this year. Our 4% proposal allows us to remain competitive.
So with it being, as you agree, that the usual is between 3 and 5%, over the span of 3 years, unfortunately, we cannot meet the 15% standard, and we're pretty solid on that. We are offering, our initial offer here is 5% over 3 years. We do agree with you guys that the shift differentials, like the night shift, the weekend, and the critical care and specialty, should definitely be paid more and different than just somebody coming in for a day shift. Whoever has more licenses will make more money, and yeah, but our initial offer for you guys for over 3 years is 5%.
Okay,
for registered nurses, like,
Yeah, for like baseline, for the lowest of the low, that is where you will start.
okay. Well, we recognize that 15% is a significant figure in a single proposal. However, we have to frame that against the cost of doing nothing. The high turnover we see isn't just an HR statistic, it translates directly to immense operational costs, recruitment fees, onboarding, temporary staffing, and burnout for the existing team. By agreeing to the competitive raise now, we stabilize the workforce for your hospital, improving morale and patient quality care, which ultimately saves the hospital more money in the long run than managing constant staffing crisis.
I do agree that having better pay will help with the stability, but it doesn't do anything about the hiring pool. After COVID, the interest in nursing degrees has dropped drastically, and we are still seeing effects in our budget. How can an increase above 5% be sustained without risking future layoff and service cuts within these 3 years? We would still, we can't just worry about paying you guys. We also, with your future safety requests here, you want more security. We cannot go paying you guys 15% more over 3 years and hire more security along with that, and keep up with doctor staffing and making sure that we have all of the materials that we need. You would have to cut part of that budget to, as you said, factor in everything else that runs this hospital and gives you guys the materials to do your job.
Our research into the regional market highlights a critical point. Nearby hospitals implemented 3 to 5% average adjustments this year, yet the turnover and wage escalation continue. This indicates those adjustments aren't keeping pace with the true market demand. Our proposal aims to catch up and then stay competitive. It's a data-driven anchor that reflects where the market is headed, not where it was in the past.
With that data, we also have to factor in again the effects of COVID and the effects that even if we pay more, that does not change the hiring pool. And we cannot change the fact that we are going under effects again from COVID. And we cannot offer any more than what is being stated there as the average pool. And I feel like going over between the 5 and 8% by the degree you are is unreasonable. This is one that we are not willing to budge on.
To be transparent, we prefer to solve this collaboratively today. We are prepared to negotiate towards a figure that works for both sides, provided it genuinely addresses the market pressure Destiny outlined. We are committed to flexibility and we have a clear alternative for our minimum acceptable outcome, our 12% BATNA. We want to resolve we want to find a sustainable solution together rather than being forced to consider our alternatives.
So, for our max offer, we'll just get it out there in the gate, it's 8%. To be able to have the funding to hire security along with this and to put in other implementations that we haven't gotten to yet, but things like daycare and free healthcare services for all of our nurses, we cannot go over 8%. But that is where, again, we have other things that we really want to offer you guys in this, but this is our hard offer. We are not going over 8% for this, or else we simply cannot offer anything else to you.
I think at this time we need to call a caucus.
Do we wanna wait on that and talk about a couple more things and then reconvene back on that issue, just so that we make sure we get through a few more things?
I mean, you just said that your bottom line, you cannot go over 8%. So
For
that doesn't,
this bit,
I don't-
yes.
right, and.
We can always come back to it if you guys are willing to continue and see what other offers we
I
have.
just wanna make sure we get through everything first.
Okay,
That's
sure.
fine.
Okay,
Stay
let's
on what
move
we're
on.
at and then go to the next
Yeah.
section.
So we
So-
agree to disagree on this and we'll go to
Yeah.
issue 2.
Yeah.
So, next we have staffing ratios and patient safety. We actually agree, we need more staffing. We want more staffing along with you, we want less stress on you guys, we want better patient reviews, better care satisfaction all around the board, and you guys did give us ratios. The only reason we disagree with it is we would like to put less on you guys. We want a 1-to-3 ratio in med surgery, we agree with telemetry. The baby wellness, we want 1-to-3 instead of 1-to-6, cut that in half for y'all, and the rest of it we agree with. Only thing that we need, as I've stated before, our staffing pool is not great, and it is greatly under what it is supposed to be. Let me find it. It is 15% less than projected demand. So we cannot implement this ratio immediately, or I feel like it would harm you guys more than it would help. I would like a 6-month period to be able to get more staffing on and to slowly integrate, bringing down your guys' patient care levels.
Will you say your ratios one more time? Just so I have
The
more
only
written
two
down.
that we changed for
Was med and
med
baby?
surgery, 1-to-3, and then the well baby, 1-to-3 as well.
Okay, I just wanna make sure I wrote it down.
And then yes, just needing a 6-month period to be able to hire more people and to slowly bring down like how many patients you'll be taking at once. It won't be an immediate change, but we do agree, we want more staff and we want you guys in charge of less people so that we can make sure everybody feels satisfied and heard and you guys do not feel like you are overbearing.
Okay, and with that though, can you also ensure that a, documented float pool, call list will be utilized first?
So do we wanna go to the mandatory overtime, kinda talk about that as well?
Sure.
So, for nurses, there's mandatory overtime because you're not allowed to leave until you see through your patient care. It would be way too disorganized for us to have you, say a patient is waiting on blood results and has to be there another hour, you're gonna have to be there another hour. We cannot fully abide by this overtime rule that you guys would like to do.
Excuse me, can I interject? I think you're mistaken. So mandatory overtime is when a company calls and says, you are required to show up this Saturday for mandatory overtime. regardless of what you work, not overtime
And we
leaving
are
the shift.
taking this as if you have a patient that needs care, you have to see through their care.
Yeah, they're two separate issues. That's not what we're talking
But
about
that's
here.
how we're making this mandatory overtime. Is we're not gonna call you and tell you have to come in. The only mandatory overtime that we are going to implement here is that if you have patients under your care, you cannot leave. But we want to put in, like you said, an emergency conditions pool and a shift pool, so that if there is, say, understaffing, we are not going to call somebody out of the blue and be like, you are our best nurse, you have to be here for this. For that, we will immediately look at who wants those hours, which I feel like
Perfect, that's
is
what,
more
yeah.
fair.
Mhm.
But as I had said, if say you're taking care of a patient and you cannot see through their care, which we would like to happen, as you say, like for emergency conditions, have that, you get 4 where you can look at that pool and pull from it yourself and be like, I have to leave 2 hours early today, this person is covering that. And we will also give that opportunity of communication on your guys' end.
Yeah, so this, so I work in a hospital, and so mandatory overtime, and I know other organizations, it's anything over your 40 hours a week, so, just so we're perfectly clear on that, it's not in order to let a nurse go home on time, that's not what we're talking about here at all.
And that's what I am
Yeah.
talking about though, where we're not
Okay,
going
but
to
what
eliminate.
I'm saying is that you are confused on the definition for mandatory overtime. Mandatory overtime is when an employee is called in
And we're not gonna do that
after their 40
anymore.
hours of work, right? But you're addressing it as mandatory overtime and it's
Yeah.
wrong.
And we're not going
Do
to
you
call
guys
in
understand what I'm
people
saying?
over
So
the
you're
40
talking about
hours.
on-call nursing?
I'm talking about, so let's say I'm nurse number 1 and I worked 40 hours this week. You, as a hospital management, cannot say, we're requiring you to mandatorily come in on Saturday to work another 8. We're not talking about the 40 hours I'm working. It's job abandonment if I leave, right, if the other nurse isn't there, so this is totally a separate issue. So what
Yeah.
you're saying is not correct.
So we're talking about
We want
mandatory
to eliminate it.
like on duty overtime.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
Yeah.
on,
agree
on
with
duty,
you.
we're there, yeah,
Mhm.
so, but
We agree with you on eliminating it, that's what I'm telling you, but that means that with the shift pool being open, you have to be open to the fact you're seeing through your patients, and this pool is open to everybody, so that if you cannot for any reason use it, make through those times, make through your 40 hours, you are open to that first. But there's only a couple occurrences for that, just trying to define that you cannot just keep pulling from this pool, that it is available 4 times for that. And I understand, we also agree that we want to eliminate pulling you in, but we want to try, for our higher nurses with specialties, capping it at 10 hours every week, for coming in, and our lower shift nurses not having any more mandatory overtime. Because for say things like surgeries and things of the sort, some things happen, sometimes there's emergencies, and so with the specialty care people making more money, there will be a cap on no more than 10 hours of mandatory overtime for the specialty care. But lower rank, all your lower rank people, if it's like your first week here, we're not gonna have mandatory overtime for you. But if you are specialty in surgery and stuff, you might get up to 10 hours a week. With that, though, every 40 hours you get an hour PTO added
okay,
to make it sweeten
sweeten the
to
deal.
overtime.
So, yeah, every 4 hours, it
40.
can, I'm sorry, wait, what?
Every 40 hours.
40
is an hour to
1
your
hour.
PTO.
Sweet, okay.
So the only people that have mandatory PTO are specialty cares, which has an even bigger limited pool, which is why we couldn't fully eliminate the overtime for them. But we do have a bigger hiring pool for the lower ranking nurses, just, regular registered nurses. So they do not have to have the mandatory overtime. But if you have a specialty care in pediatrics, you will have to have, well, don't have to, but you will be in the automatic pool of overtime.
Yes. Can we also, get, when a nurse or CNA or, like unit secretary, somebody working on the floor, somebody working in the unit, if they are required to do mandatory overtime, can they have a meal voucher? In case they might not, have enough food to eat for the rest of that shift?
Yeah.
They can have a meal voucher from the hospital cafeteria?
I mean,
Let's put it up. Let's
we'll talk
about
about it. I don't wanna just throw out there something they don't agree with me on, but I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
And yeah, for mandatory overtime, that was the only thing we agreed with the pool shift though. We want people who need or want the hours to have that available to them, and people who have families to have the time to go home to their families and take care of them. And all that fun stuff.
Okay.
Do we feel there's an agreement there?
Yeah, sure, that works for us.
Awesome. That moves us to workplace safety. Do you wanna read this one?
Sure. So,
Oh, I guess the next one's actually the mental health one.
oh yeah.
It's just
Okay,
cut off
sure.
different.
We are asking the hospital management to, provide 6 free counseling sessions per year through the Employee Assistance Program.
This one, I'm excited for. I'm giving you one better. We're gonna give you free counseling all year. Every week, you get an hour of drop-in time ready whenever you're ready. This time does not accrue, so if you don't use this hour this week, you don't have 2 hours next week. But I want all of our nurses to be in the best possible mental health that they can be, and we understand how physically demanding, how mentally draining this can be, and how it can affect everybody. And you are literally on hospital grounds. We will be paying this therapist whether you are seeing them or not during these hours, so we would love to have somebody available for you guys.
We love that. Thank you, that's super important. So, yep, we can cross that one off the list, and we are good there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then, let's see, so that's number 4, okay. And then we'll, workplace safety. We propose that staff have the right to remove themselves from unsafe situations without the fear of retaliation.
So our question was, what did you define as retaliation?
Retaliation from hospital management side.
In like,
So let's say I'm a nurse on the unit and I'm getting attacked by a patient.
Mhm.
So I remove myself from the patient's room, get myself to the nursing station, get security called, get, other nurses around me, other, obviously, staff, not families or anything to get involved, but other staff around me to where I'm safe, and obviously the patient should be safe, in their room. And then I don't get written up for removing myself from the situation. I don't get, maybe
written up, fired, or
Yeah,
any
just-
sort of like,
just I don't
verbal
have
warning.
right. Like
Okay.
if I'm the idea is I'm not gonna stand there and get beaten up by somebody, patient,
we don't want that
visitor, and then have my job be in
Our-
jeopardy as well.
concern, as we've talked about, is for different people, different things can be different levels of danger.
Mhm.
So we want to talk about what steps we should put into place before you leave a room, so that we can be like, did you do this, did you do this, did you do this? In extreme circumstances, like say, you walk into a patient's room, they immediately punch you in the face.
Mhm.
We will talk about that later, but say it is like something that can be dealt with, what steps would you like to move through first before moving yourself? Our question is just a liability issue. Say if there is a patient that is a danger to others and themselves, you leave the room, they go to the roof, top of the building and jump off. We don't want that. So we wanna make sure there are steps in place. We also are suggesting, we're completely open to ideas on this, maybe putting a clicker on people's name tags that alert security, or if you guys want walkie-talkies. We didn't know if a security button in the room would be something you're interested in, how you would want that, what you would want implemented to feel safer.
I think that sounds great. What do you think, Destiny?
OSHA guidance supports employee withdrawal from imminent danger situations. This provision follows established safety practices.
And with the steps, what would you want it to look at is like, this is imminent danger? That's kind of our question. Cause as somebody, like, you could talk to one person and say, an old drunk man yelling in your face is imminent danger, and another nurse might be like, well, I know the steps to go through the conflict on this, and to get it so that they can be handled. You know, how would you, as a group of nurses, what steps would you want to implement to be like, okay, this is imminent danger to you, besides like outside of somebody having a weapon?
So I think it's not going to be subjective. I mean, this is not something that we can objectify. For it to be objective, it would need to be fact, you know, like for a fact, someone pulls out a knife, this is danger. We're working in the real world, that's not, we can't say, all these things, you know, mean danger, therefore do this and that. The idea is, you know, we're dealing with highly educated people. These are doctors, nurses, CNAs, these are people regulated by the state, through their state licensing agencies, to make good decisions, to make, you know, great decisions. They're in this field, they're in this position for your hospital for a reason. They're there to care for people. But in all honesty, I have a cousin who's a nurse right now who, her in the ED department was stabbed. You know, just out of the blue trying to check a patient in. Situations like that do occur, and we need to keep our employees safe, you know, so they can come back tomorrow and work their other shift. And so we're just asking, if it gets to an extreme level, and if, you know, let's say I'm nurse number one again, if I feel like I'm in fear from this patient for being attacked or physically harmed, I am allowed to leave that room and call for help.
Yes.
Or use your, you know.
I do like your button.
I like the button, I like
the
that on the
button
name
your
badge.
yeah.
I mean, that
That's
would
what
be
we
Easier to touch,
easiest.
yeah.
Cause if
Easiest.
it's just a button in the room, you can't
Yeah.
always get to it, you
Yeah.
can't always talk
Yeah.
in a walkie-talkie, that's
Yeah.
kind of what we were talking about
Yeah.
too. But I wanted kind of like an idea from you guys, cause you were also talking to joint safety committee,
Uh-huh.
which we were okay with, as long as it's purely volunteer. Like, we cannot require anybody to like be a part of it or to dedicate time to it. You guys would have to kind of, as nurses,
Yeah.
agree this is what we want to do. But if you were to find something, like if you guys made a video that you wanted included in training, that's like, this is how you identify an unsafe situation.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that you would suggest?
I think that sounds good. If we can sort of, kind of track these incidences throughout, you know, the next year or two, and, see if we need to implement anything more, you know, hopefully we just work in an okay environment, and that, you know, we're not being attacked by patients there to get help, you know.
Yeah.